Could you imagine living in 13 different houses, 4 different cities, and 2 different states, all before you reach the age of 22? I have lived in places where the Thanksgiving dinner would be at 75 degrees outside. I've also lived places where the winters were an average of 20 degrees, and I would walk outside to snow up to my knees. I have lived in towns of 600,000 people, and I have lived in a very small town of 6,000 people that no one had ever heard of. I was born in Nacogdoches, Texas. I lived there for a few short years until my family relocated to Louisville, Kentucky. I went to 1st through 5th grade there. And then right before my 6th grade year, we moved back to Texas, to Carthage, Texas, which is where most of my family lives. It's very small and no one has any idea where it is unless you're from there. I also remember in my 6th grade, the very first day, it was a really big culture shock because we were all standing up, you know how you do at the morning announcement, and they're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and then they do the Pledge of Allegiance to the Texas flag. And being from Kentucky, I had absolutely no idea what the Pledge to the Texas flag even was. So I just stood there, my hand over my heart, kind of mouthing like I knew the words, even though I had absolutely no idea. And I will never, ever, ever forget that. Fast forwarding to my college experience, I was still in Carthage, Texas. I went to Panola College. It's a really small community college, the only college in the town. I lived with my best friend. I went to school full-time. I worked full-time, and I also was in band. I got a full ride scholarship for playing the trumpet. I played in concert band and jazz band, which was 2 hours Monday through Friday. At the end of the semester, I figured out that the restaurant that I was working at full-time was closing, and because I lived in such a small town, there were actually no other jobs in the town or even nearby. That's how small we're talking. So I made the decision to move to the Colony, Texas, which is really, really, really kind of far north Dallas. And I lived with my aunt and uncle. A couple months later, I, had already started working, got a new job, and I got an apartment by myself. So I was 19 years old, living in Dallas by myself with only 2 family members within 20 minutes of me. So that was pretty crazy. It definitely made me a very strong person, taught me to really be self-sufficient. I am really glad that I've ended the roller coaster of moving from place to place, and I have found a place to call home. I would like for you to know a little bit more about me. So I'm going to share 4 objects with you that will give you a more in-depth picture of me. My first object represents how I see myself, and that would be my family photo album. This has pictures of my ultrasounds of my daughter and my first vacation with my fiance when we went to Gulf Shores, Alabama. All sorts of little things, Rangers game with my family, going out to dinner with his family. I also have another that is just of my daughter, and so cute. But I love looking back on maternity pictures. I love looking back on all of these things, and family is super important to me. And I think that having pictures of all of your memories, to be able to go back one day, like way far down the line, was really nice and really important, because one day pictures is all you're going to have left. And this brings me to my second object, which it represents one of my interests and one of my hobbies, and that would be my skillet. I really like to cook. I also enjoy watching cooking shows. Gordon Ramsay is my favorite. I love Kitchen Nightmares and Hell's Kitchen. I also really like to watch Chopped. But I really like cooking and trying new recipes. And my favorite thing to make is steak on the stove. That's my favorite thing. And this brings me to my third object, which is something that represents how I believe other people perceive me. And that would be my phone. Not in the way that you're thinking that I am on the phone all the time. It's actually the opposite. A lot of people think that I'm antisocial because I don't want to constantly be texting and calling and FaceTiming and Facebooking and on Instagram and Snapchat. I actually don't even have an Instagram or a Snapchat. I am just really busy. I work full time, have a 9-month-old daughter. I like to spend time with my family whenever I do have any time off. So I really am just not very good at keeping up with communication with people, just because I am so busy. And it's not that I don't want to be in constant contact with everyone. It's just that it's really hard, and I have to prioritize so that my life isn't more hectic than it already is. And this brings me to my last object, which is something that my best friend says represents her perception of me. And that is an onion. She says that I am a very complex person who has very many layers, which I do agree with. But I think part of that complex personality comes from, I know exactly what I want to achieve, and I won't let anything stand in the way of that. I am very good at focusing, and I'm really good at committing and following through with decisions that I make, and not just backing out whenever things get hard. And lastly, I constantly challenge myself, and I love to learn. I'm glad to have had this time to share with you more about myself and my life. I am a very complex person who will never cease to surprise you. And I can't wait to learn more about you and our similarities and differences. Thank you for listening.